سلام بچینەگیان سێکشنی یەکی چاپتەری سێ بەعام باسی cellular respiration ئەکەین. دوو pathwayمان هەبوو کە خوێنین aerobic respiration و anaerobic respiration. ئێمە ئەزانین لە photosynthesisا فێر بووین compound دروست هەبێ. باشەم organic compoundانە ئیلا ئەبێ بگۆڕێن بۆ فۆرمێکی ئینەرجی کە پێی ئەوترێ ATP so that the cells can use it. اینجا سێڵەکان دەتوانن بەکاری بهێنن. بۆ ئەوەی من ئەم ATP دروست بکەم چ ریاکشنێک ڕوو ئەیە. This is what we call it cellular respiration. ئەڵێ all cells break down complex organic compounds into simpler molecules or simpler compound. Cell use some of the energy that's released in this process to make ATP. يعني cellular respiration أي مكيشية complex and large organic compound أكابة simpler smaller organic compound. When this reaction happen, which thing will be released? Energy will be released. باشا energy can release أبي half of it will become ATP. It's not saying all. Some of this energy becomes ATP. So the aim of cellular respiration is what? The aim of cellular respiration is to break down complex or large organic molecule into simpler organic molecules, and then ATP will be produced inside that process. بابزانين چون رؤيا الله لبريكداوني ليرة سيري هايلايت كان الله by breaking down these compounds into simpler molecules cells release energy. By breaking down these compounds ما بس large organic compound باشا large organic compounds or complex organic compound into simpler molecule cell release energy. Some of that energy is used to make ATP. Many times we learned that where we can get ATP or how we can produce ATP by adding phosphate to ADP, it will result in ATP. Basha, it says you know that ATP is the main energy currency, or it's the main source of energy that the cells can use it. Inja process this complex process process large or complex organic molecule a simple or small organic molecule, and when this reaction happen ATP will be produced as a byproduct. Complex process the complex process which cells make ATP by breaking down organic molecule is known as cellular respiration. I already told you cellular respiration يعني break down a complex molecule by simpler molecule so that we will have ATP. Inja how photosynthesis had initial reaction initial يعني reaction يدا spec كلا photosynthesis همان بو light reaction بو ليرش initial reaction كيكا همان تشيا the initial reaction or cellular respiration begin مادام begin يعني همو reaction كده spec but a biochemical pathway which is called what? Which is called glycolysis. يكم reaction كهمان cellular respiration شيا glycolysis. بابزانين glycolysis شيا glycolysis glycolysia وهات ولا glycogen وهات glycogenيش complex formati glucose. So glycolysis yields a relatively small amount of ATP. The other product of glycolysis can follow either two main pathway depending on oxygen availability and depending on whether there is oxygen in the cell. Let's look at the diagram. We have we are having glycolysis process and cellular respiration pathway. Ladies, glycolysis no matter if organic compound is what is a process is cellular respiration. Okay, This organic compound undergoing cellular respiration. This whole diagram is cellular respiration. The organic compound, which is what? Which is glucose, undergoes glycolysis. When undergoes glycolysis product, which at the upcoming reaction we will learn it by detail, first glycolysis will happen. And glycolysis product is what? It's something we call it what? We call it pyruvic acid. Pyruvic acid, it's the product of glycolysis. Cellular respiration starts, we said glycolysis is what is first or initial reaction in cellular respiration. The product of glycolysis, or when glycolysis ends, we will have what? We will have pyruvic acid as product. Then this pyruvic acid, it's not like the ones of photosynthesis. In photosynthesis, whenever one reaction was finishing, the upcoming reaction immediately it was starting. But here in glycolysis, the reaction ends, which is glycolysis end, and there is pyruvic acid. This pyruvic acid cannot start any of these two reactions, either anaerobic, either aerobic respiration. Instead, it will look at the environment of the cell. Inside of the environment, we are having many factors, but pyruvic acid will look at the environment and search for oxygen availability. If oxygen was absent, which means without oxygen, the pyruvic acid enters fermentation or anaerobic respiration. Fermentation and anaerobic respiration, both of them, it's the same meaning. What about if pyruvic acid, how it enters aerobic respiration? It will look at the environment, and if oxygen was present, means by the availability of oxygen, or when oxygen is available, pyruvic acid enters aerobic respiration. So one more time, let's clean all those and recall it again. We are saying at the end of glycolysis, we have what? At the end of glycolysis, we have pyruvic acid, or the product of glycolysis is what? Is pyruvic acid. It will decide to undergo either fermentation, either aerobic respiration, depending on what? Depending on oxygen availability. With oxygen, pyruvic acid undergoes aerobic respiration. Without oxygen, pyruvic acid enters anaerobic or fermentation pathway. Both of the terms is used. What's left here to know that is when we will look at the pathways. For example, when we say fermentation or anaerobic pathway, this whole diagram is included. This is the pathway of, for example, this is the pathway of fermentation. Glycolysis is counted with fermentation also. It's counted with aerobic respiration also. Why? We are saying glycolysis is the initial reaction. When we say it is initial reaction, it means it's counted in both of the reactions. So if oxygen was not present, or it was absent, without oxygen, glycolysis happened, and then the product of glycolysis enters anaerobic respiration. So the question here is, can anaerobic respiration or can fermentation give ATP? We can say fermentation gives ATP, but itself, هيج تاكي دروس كردوا هيج ATP كي دروس كردوا. No. What about the pathway? ايه قربلن pathway fermentation ATP دروسك لpathway كا تشيش حسابه glycolysis لثر pathway كا حسابه. ايه glycolysis ATP دروس كردوا. Yes. So ATP كا glycolysis دروسيك بو pathway كا حسابه. So pay attention. We can say we can say fermentation pathway can produce ATP, But what about fermentation itself as a process? Qua هيك ATP كمان سهمة كمان بو ATP كرابة. No. So how I can conclude it? شون بتشوكي كما يعني شون كرتي كما ألم fermentation pathway can give ATP. يعني fermentation لنا pathway كيا شون كglycolysis إلى سر حسابه أتوانيت شين بيبا أتوانيت ATP بيبا. What about fermentation itself? بس fermentation خوي بتنها pathway كنا fermentation خوي بتنها هيج additional ATP كمنايته. So in English we say fermentation pathway can produce ATP, but fermentation itself as a process, it's not giving any additional or any extra ATP. What about anaerobic respiration? Aerobic respiration, the pathway of aerobic respiration is like this. Glycolysis, as you can see, glycolysis is also counted with aerobic respiration. So in aerobic respiration pathway, glycolysis gives ATP and aerobic respiration also gives ATP. So for aerobic respiration pathway, I can say aerobic pathway can give additional ATP. أو تاني سهمكم بكراو ATP زياترم آياته. So أول شيء كله highlight كان هي with or without oxygen, pyruvic acid decides to undergo which of them, anaerobic or aerobic. If oxygen was present, it is aerobic. If not, it is anaerobic. Okay, the highlights also recalls the same information. And the last note we are saying fermentation pathway itself can give ATP, but the pathway gives ATP, but itself fermentation as a process is not giving any additional ATP.